Well, it's day 3 of the first week of the LCS with coverage brought to you by Alienware. I'm joined right now by Jensen from Team Liquid to talk for our second time this year, but our first time in the LCS season, I guess is the way you would put it. So, Jensen, I believe you were one of the first interviews I did right at the start of lock-in. Now, obviously, you are the lock-in victor, and things have started off in this first week. So, I guess, what is your assessment of the team, and how has Team Liquid changed over the course of this past month?
Um, hmm. I'd say we've gotten more aggressive. I think it's something we're getting better at just over time. I mean, initially when we got this roster, the goal was to be really aggressive, right? But I think we're finding our footing more slowly and slowly. Yeah, so that's one thing we've been working on. We've also been working on throwing the games a lot, as you can see. Um, that's something we need to work a bit more on. But yeah, I mean, I'd say like we're still in the development phase as a team, trying to figure out how exactly we want to play the game. But yeah, things are looking up.
Well, I didn't get a chance. You mentioned throwing the games. We didn't get a chance to talk after that Immortals game, but what did happen? Because it was very funny to see you guys win. Obviously, lock in, and the next week, second game in. Unfortunately, you lose to Immortals. So what went wrong?
Yeah. I mean, they obviously played the early game pretty well, but we still came back in the game. But then I don't know, man. We're just throwing a lot. I think a lot of us is having focus issues. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from their win, right? Because they did play well, but we're making so many stupid mistakes. Like I would never I should never just randomly walk up mid and die and throw the game. Like that's why we lost our models because we didn't get the Baron because I just didn't it. And we're also just making a lot of stupid individual mistakes. So I don't know. It seems like we're still trying to adjust to LCS somehow, as weird as that sound. Um, yeah, just not playing as good as we should be or as focused as we should be.
Is any of this an artifact of you guys trying to find this different play style, trying to be more aggressive than last year, or is it literally just like, for whatever reason, you can't get completely into the game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's so much the playstyle. I think it's just, one second, let me close the door.
Sure.
Um, I think it's just maybe like a mix of not fully feeling the on stage or the urgency in the game, and maybe like exhaustion. At least for me, we played so many games in the lock-in tournament, and I mean, we literally didn't have a day off since then. So I mean, at least to me, I'm feeling a little, I guess, burned out just from playing so much and not really having time to rest. So at least for me, that could be why. Yeah, I just need to be able to focus more, I guess, because even in the other games, like I can tell I'm not as focused as I should be. It could be partially because maybe playing from home as well, or not playing on stage, because when you go to play on stage, like it feels different, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I kind of had that feeling the whole time, anyways. Just since quarantine, not being able to go on stage kind of sucks because it's like a different vibe.
So does this? I'm kind of surprised you guys didn't have a break. I guess you started practicing again on Monday. Given that the LCS now Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is this something that you guys have talked about internally on how you're going to manage the schedule?
Well, it was just a bit unfortunate in terms of schedule because we had a shoot to do the
Okay,
Monday,
okay.
which basically lasted the whole day, right? We had to get up early for it, so didn't really get much rest. But I mean, we're gonna have this Monday off, and then we'll see. Hopefully that'll make us feel a bit more rested and better prepared for the next week. Because I mean, at least from my perspective, I think having an off day is super important because yeah, I mean, I've been playing for a long time, and I can definitely tell just my focus and everything in general. If I don't get like to step away from practice, I definitely feel different about the game.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of an interesting situation where before you guys would have 4 days of practice and then you would have 2 days of games. So it was like twice as much practice as game days. Now you have the situation where it's like 3 days of practice and then 3 days of game days. So it's like actually 1 to 1. Do you like that, or is it weird? Do you think it's going to cause issues? I don't know.
It's hard to say because I think teams are still trying to like figure out what the best way is to schedule, just with everything when it comes to practice and stuff with the new schedule. I do like having more stage games because I think they are the most valuable. Um, I actually think scrimming as much as teams do in general is actually too much. I think it's a bit more like quantity over quality. Sorry, quality over quantity. Um, but it's just been like that since forever because in Asia they practice really hard, so they kind of set the bar for like how much you should practice and stuff. But yeah, I know in other esports they don't practice nearly as much as we do. So I'm hoping that like eventually or we'll just not try to practice more because we have less scrim days. Because at least to me, like I said, I think you learn the most from just playing the stage games because that's when everyone is like supposedly fully focused and don't really make as many mistakes.
Yeah. A lot of people would hear you say that and say, league players are so lazy.
Yep.
But it sounds like you think it's less about you want a bunch of time off and more just better life balance and better practice because perhaps practicing so much is not actually helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can understand why people would think that is lazy, but I will say in my defense, I probably have the most solo queue games of every pro out there, at least in the West. But yeah, I don't think like because in scrims a lot of the times what you do is you try to like perfect the style you want for the week, right? So like to me, if I play like 10 F0 games in scrims or two, like I personally won't feel a difference, right? It's more so just to try to work on the team related stuff, right? But I think if you just have quality games, right, and people are like fully focused, then you can do it in much less games anyways.
So then, would you say that scrims are, or sorry, solo queue is very, because it's funny. I've heard a lot of pro players say solo queue is not valuable, but
Mhm.
it sounds like you would look to shift away from doing so much scrimming, and then look to solo queue as the place where you would like master the champions themselves.
Um, Maybe a bit of both. Because in the past, I was a guy who never really like cared much about solo queue because I didn't think it was super useful. Um, I think it's just to perfect the champions you want to play, mechanically. That's how I see solo queue. You want to make sure you know how to play them mechanically, and then you execute them in a team environment. But I mean, honestly, I don't even think you need to play much at all. I mean, maybe it's different for me, right? Because I'm the kind of player that, if I don't play much, I don't think my skill really gets much worse. But I'm sure for others, they feel the need to like play a lot of games to really feel on top of their game. But yeah, like I could for sure like play like 3 to 4 games a day, and I would feel totally fine, even if I wouldn't feel a big difference if I played 12 games or 3 to 4 a day. You know?
So then, what causes you to want to play so much solo queue? Because if you feel like you don't need to play, you're like, if I know a champion, I know a champion. Then why are you so ahead of other people, or at least near the top on solo queue games?
Just having fun with the champions I'm playing, or if there's other champions that I want to learn, because like I say, you try to focus specifically on like a few champions a week usually, and then you want to just make sure you're on top of your game on those champs, right? But then you can start picking up a new style in solo queue on other champs or something like that, or if you feel like you're not comfortable enough on those champs, you can play them more. Um, yeah, that's how I see it.
Gotcha. Okay. Hey, the last question I want to ask you, I'm asking a couple people this weekend, is what do you think of the information that came out this week around teams wanting to lift the import rule and just be able to import as many players as they can? Is that something you would like? Do you think you do not care? I mean, what would your opinion be if something like that came to pass?
Um, hmm. I think that one is. It's hard to say, right? Like I fully understand why the owners would do it, right? Because I think it would be a lot cheaper for the owners if they could just constantly like hire top solo queue players from other regions because they'd be super cheap and you can develop them that way. So it makes sense from the owners, but I think a lot of NA players would be jobless, and I don't think it would be good for the league. I mean, it's weird, right? Because we're a team with 4 imports already. Um, technically, I mean, obviously we have some that count as
Yeah.
NA, right? So maybe I'm being unfair by saying this because we are basically a full import team, right? But I think it's good for the league if there is at least some NA talent, and it will give more hope for the future NA talent because I do believe that even if they're not fully ready right now, like eventually there will be some more players in NA that can maybe become a star eventually.
Well, and I'm kind of curious about how you perceive yourself because I think there was a lot of discussion around this. I feel like you are an LCS player. Like I know obviously but you've played so long in the LCS, and I'm kind of curious. I know that you are not from North America originally, but how do you view yourself? Do you think of yourself as like, oh, the LCS is my home, I'm part of the LCS, I am an LCS player, or I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's weird, right? Because I originally got my skill in Europe, right? But then I guess the way I look at this is NA like kind of defined who I am today in terms of a player, right? Like I would be a different player in Europe. Whether for better or worse, it's hard to say. I think a lot of people would probably think better because it's a different region and people think EU is better. But it's hard to really say what would have happened. But yeah, I for sure consider myself a NI player at this point because it's basically where I've been playing my whole career, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Well, hey, thank you so much for the interview. Anything you want to say to any of the Team Liquid fans out there?
Um, no, I mean, yeah, thank you guys for supporting us, and I hope we can continue to develop as a team. And I know it looks like our games is a bit shaky right now, but it's a work in progress. And yeah, thanks for the support.
Very good. Well, you always give great interviews, so I really appreciate it, Jensen. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. Hey, thanks so much for watching that interview. I gotta say, just covering the games from home has made me feel a little thin lately, is maybe the best way to put it. But you know what is even thinner than how I feel? The amazing laptops that Alienware makes. I'm talking about the M15, M17. These things are beautiful. They are fantastic to be able to throw onto your backpack and bring with you to work or school or any number of different places. Get one now so that when we all start traveling and going places again, you'll be ready. You can go find those over at alienware.com/Travis, and Travis10 off is the code that you'll use. Save 10% off your order.